whatever it is you're trying to do, saying, we're all on this side and you're over there. I've been over here, bro. Where were you? I've been over here. I was at Charlottesville, lest I remind you. Where were you in 2017? Were you at Burning Man? Sorry, were you in some commune in Portland? I was at Charlottesville in 2017.
Hey guys, Adam with the Truth Desk here, and today we're going to be looking at the feud between Ian Carroll and Nick Fuentes. This all started on December the 5th when Ian Carroll went on a YouTube live and basically pleaded with Nick to come over to the Israel was involved in Charlie Kirk's murder side with himself and Candace Owens. Nick, of course, responded eviscerating Ian as he likes to do, picking him apart, attacking his character on his show that night. Now, if you guys are curious, I do have all the information on the full Israeli connection to Charlie Kirk's murder compiled in one video that I will throw up for you now. And I must say, on this feud here, it's hard for me to take a side because I like Ian Carroll and I like Nick Fuentes. I think they both make really good points, actually. I think Ian was really quick to accuse Israel of being involved in Charlie's murder, and I think Nick is being kind of stubborn when he doesn't look at any of the evidence that's been brought up so far. So let's just get right into it. First, we're going to look at Ian's live, and then we're going to look at Nick's response.
You're the Israel guy. You're our guy, bro.
He's talking about Nick.
And we are now well into the moment with Israel, with TPUSA, with Candace, with the Trump government, with everything. And what's going on, man? Where are you at, Nick? Like, yeah, Nick is still doing his thing. He's still running his show. He's still being critical of Israel. But he's also doing the podcast circuit, basically running everything he can against Candace and against actual, like, factual information. I could understand if Nick was skeptical of Candace's sources, but Nick is straight up, like, not here. Not there for the conversation about Israel in the way I think a lot of us expect and the way I think a lot of us were ready for. It's like arriving on the battlefield and your general is off hanging out with Steven Crowder. Like, you're supposed to be our guy, bro. This is your moment. This is your moment on so many levels, dude. Where are you? You're on Steven Crowder disavowing the people that are actually out here taking on Israel, taking on the deep state, taking on the whole thing. And you're over here with Crowder. With Crowder. And we're going to get into all of these different elements throughout this show. And, like, the world is not about picking sides. But sometimes when you look at the sides of an issue, it tells you a lot about the issue. And it tells you a lot about how. If you are thinking about a thing in a way that makes you arrive at the same conclusion as Tim Pool and as Steven Crowder and as Rabbi Shmuley and as all these other people. And to be clear, I'm not saying that Nick is the same as Rabbi Shmuley. And I'm just saying. How are you winding up at the conclusion of...
We're going to take a break here. I'm going to play a clip of Rabbi Shmuley I think you guys will enjoy real quick. I've seen this on X before. I have no idea what's going on here. Here's Rabbi Shmuley. He's like a huge Zionist influencer on X. Here he is grinding on some little kid. Let's watch. Like, what the heck is that? What the fuck is that, dude? What is this guy doing? How is that allowed? I don't know. That just blows my mind. Like, can somebody explain to me what he was doing, what the context was here? Because I've seen this all over X and I have no idea what it is. And this guy's super popular. He's like one of the mainstream Zionist influencers. All right, sorry. Let's get back to Ian. I just wanted to play that for you guys.
These guys, with all that you know, with all that you've called out, with your deep understanding of how Jewish donors control things, with your deep understanding of the history of Mossad and of the CIA, you don't even think there's a possibility? Not even a chance.
This is a good point by Ian, because if we'll get into it later, but Nick Fuentes doesn't think there's a possibility at all. He won't even entertain the idea of Israel being involved in Charlie's murder. He won't even entertain it. And that's a good point that's made by Ian.
And this is supposed to be your moment. This is supposed to be your rise. You're on the generational run, bro. And you have generationally run right to Steven Crowder's show to hang out with the Fed slop narrative for like kind of a facetious take on it. It's very confusing to a lot of us, and it's a bummer because I genuinely like you being here. I genuinely like that you challenge the conversation, and I'm genuinely impressed by what you've done with your platform and your messaging over the years.
Ian's a groiper.
But like, I think a lot of creators right now are feeling the way I'm feeling and are just afraid to say it because we all know how the groipers are. And we all know that Nick is good at holding a grudge. And that's cool. If Nick wants to hold a grudge, that's fine. I'm not stressed. But I'm just genuinely like, bro, this is your moment. And you ain't here. We're all on the front lines of battle for America, to save America from this influence.
All right, so that was Ian Carroll not going off on Nick, but basically calling him out, saying come into the fold here. Next, we're going to watch Nick Fuentes' response. Of course, Nick comes out fiery against Ian. That's kind of Nick's thing. He likes to attack people that even slightly talk about him in a less than positive way. And I just want to say before we get into Nick's response, I think a big part of Nick's reasoning for not calling out Israel, not saying Israel's involved in Charlie's murder, is the fact that Candace Owens was the one that really led the charge. And Nick and Candace have this whole thing. It all goes back to this interview that Candace did with someone where she said, well, I think Nick kind of needs to figure out what his next steps are and maybe he basically said Nick needed to grow up.
You should be allowed to be 18 years old and say stupid stuff. And you can understand why then he went to like the extreme of being really angry, because who wouldn't feel that way if they had done all of that to you over like standing up to saying Israel's a foreign country? Why do we have to support it? But I think at the age of 26 and 27, people are expecting a little bit more like growth there. Like I'm wondering, like, okay, you have
Here's
the
what
platform,
pissed Nick off.
You beat the thing, right? People are following you and listening to you. Like, what are you going to present now? You know, what are you going to be? You don't have to do the jab, just saying things to be whatever. Like, what are you actually going to present to the public?
And then, of course, Nick went on his show and was like, buff on Google, Candace, fuck you.
And she gives this load of PC response. She goes,
pretty aggressive
well,
from Nick.
You know, when he was a kid, he got attacked by them, and I understand why he would be angry and why he would be mad about that, but he needs to grow up and figure out what he wants to do. Oh, really? Oh, really? Bafangul, Candace.
You know, Nick's really goes over the top when people attack him. But I think the main reason that Nick hasn't come into this is because Candace Owens is the one leading the charge, and he's like, fuck Candace. Honestly, that's my honest opinion of it. Now, I will say something that Nick talks about in his spiel here is how Charlie's body wasn't even cold, and Ian and Candace were already accusing Israel, which that is fair. I did notice that. I did notice there was like a huge push right away to start blaming Israel. But that has to do with just how X works, okay? If you got to post these extreme opinions. You have to post these out there things that people want to click on. That's how you get engagement. Being controversial, posting edgy things. That's what X rewards. So that's just kind of a symptom of social media, I guess. But let's watch Nick's response to Ian here.
And I saw Ian Carroll came out today on a live stream pleading with me to join in on the conspiracy. Ian Carroll, the conspiracy theorist, he's making videos about the conspiracy behind Red Lobster, the conspiracy behind Applebee's, the conspiracy behind Burger King. He does a live stream tonight and says, Where are you, Nick? We're all aligned on this against the Jews, and you are agreeing with Crowder and Tim Pool and everybody else. We need you. Why are you with them? And I would say with Ian Carroll, where's the evidence? What even is that? Everything other than evidence. They're going to say, well, Israel kills everybody else. Okay, people die all the time, actually. People die all the time, and there are a lot of school shootings and assassinations. This stuff happens with regularity. Was Israel behind Luigi Mangione? Why or why not? Was Israel behind the school shooting in Colorado that happened on the same day? Why or why not? Was Israel behind the shooting of Trump? Why or why not? I don't know if any of those people blamed Israel for the shooting of Trump. Was Israel behind the Las Vegas shooting? Why or why not?
Guys, if you haven't looked into that Las Vegas shooting, that's a huge thing. I don't really want to get into that too much in this video, but there's a lot of questions around the Las Vegas shooting, and the official story does not make sense.
Because the heuristic seems to be Israel is behind literally everything. Literally everything. Not most things, not things we can demonstrate with evidence. No, they're behind literally everything. And if they're behind literally everything in the past, then it's safe to assume they're behind literally everything in the future. And that is ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense. Why? Charlie Kirk was Israel's top guy. I don't know how much more clear you can make it. And here's a perfect example. Hey, Ian Carroll, why did you on September 7th of this year tweet at Charlie Kirk, you're working for the Jews that killed Jesus?
I'll throw that
on
tweet up.
September 7th, 2025, you tweeted that Charlie Kirk is working for the Jews that killed Jesus. On September 11th, you were absolutely certain that Israel killed him.
This is Nick's best point here. That is absolutely true. I love Ian Carroll, but that is absolutely true. Charlie's body, like I said, Charlie's body wasn't even cold. And Ian Carroll and a lot of people were like, that was Israel!
Because he was this close to telling the truth. And he died for it. So what changed in those 4 days exactly? What irrefutable proof did you get in those 4 days? On September 7th, you said Charlie Kirk is working for the Jews that killed Jesus. On September 11th, the day after he was killed, you were certain, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that Israel killed him to silence him. How does that even happen? Before we had a suspect, before we knew any of the facts, any of it, you knew for sure they did it. So, do you have ESP? Are you omniscient? Do you have telepathy?
The one thing I will say is Nick's kind of glossing over a lot of the evidence. The meeting in the Hamptons, there was the offer of Netanyahu to fund Turning Point USA with $150 billion that Charlie turned down. Charlie lost a few Jewish donors, and he famously said in a group text message, leaving me no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause. And that was just a few days before his death. So Ian didn't know all of that stuff when he was tweeting at Charlie, but
I don't think so. This is a grift. This is a grift. It is intellectually lazy. It is dishonest. You are making assumptions that you cannot rationally make. And if you want to destroy your credibility, that's fine. If you want to destroy your credibility by blaming Israel for killing the #1 Israel defender in America, that is your business. But don't try to rope me into it and guilt me or whatever it is you're trying to do, saying, we're all on this side and you're over there. I've been over here, bro. Where were you? I've been over here. I was at Charlottesville, lest I remind you. Where were you in 2017? Were you at Burning Man? Sorry, were you in some commune in Portland? I was at Charlottesville in 2017. He goes, we're all over here fighting the good fight. You and who? You and Candace Owens, who was working at Daily Wire last year? You and Candace Owens, who was working at Daily Wire. You and Tucker Carlson, who was working at Fox News. In 2017, 10 years ago, I was at Charlottesville. In 2019, I led the Groyper War against Charlie Kirk, calling him an Israel shill. It is 2025. Nothing has changed. For 13 years, from the time Charlie founded Turning Point until today, that organization was owned by Israel and served Israel, and everyone knows that. In June of this year, Charlie texted Dinesh D'Souza and said, Nick Fuentes is vermin. We've been fighting him for 6 years. He's anti-Semitic. In August, he said, I'm anti-Semitic garbage and I need to be censored and he would never debate me. That was in August. People want to point out, oh, well, he was leaning in the other direction. He wasn't leaning in the other direction. His right-hand man, Andrew Colvett, comes from Salem Media. Look at who's involved in Salem Media. It is a Christian Zionist outfit. It is in bed with Israel. You want to know how I know that? Melissa Straight used to work there. From Prager University. She also used to work for Unit 8200 in the IDF. That's where Andrew Colvett comes from, and he was Charlie Kirk's right-hand man. Charlie Kirk appointed Andrew Colvett to lead their struggle session about Israel after the Turning Point SAS conference in July. When Israel bombed Qatar in contravention of Trump's own foreign policy, who did Charlie Kirk invite on the show to do Hasbara and explain the party line? Ben Shapiro. While Charlie Kirk played devil's advocate, he lended his platform to Ben Shapiro to give Israel's position. And on Wednesday, the day he was shot, Charlie Kirk met with his rabbi to prepare him to defend Israel at Provo.
I actually didn't know that. That's pretty crazy. I'm hearing that from Nick for the first time, but Nick does bring up some interesting points here. And I will just say for like the third time that Ian and Candace were both really quick to accuse Israel of being involved in Charlie's murder before a lot of the evidence had really come out. And that is a symptom of social media, especially X. When you post controversial things, you get much better engagement. A big example of that would be the whole palm pistol theory. You know, the guy on Charlie's security team that like went like that and people think he had a palm pistol in his hand. That's totally stupid. If you've got a barrel of a gun that's recessed into your hand and you shoot it, you're going to get your fingers powder burnt. You're going to go ow and drop it. I mean, why would they have the guy front and center shooting Charlie? It's just a ridiculous, stupid theory. I've got several videos disproving it. I'll throw one up for you guys right now. It's a totally dumb theory, but that's one example of these spooky, or like the spooky TikToks. You know, they play that spooky TikTok music and there's some jackass and he's like, oh, look at this. Look what I found and blah, blah, blah. And he's pointing at stuff and people watch it and they're like, oh my gosh. They're just, that kind of shit really spreads easily. And then the problem with stuff like that is, yes, it spreads easily, but a lot of it isn't true. A lot of it's not well researched. A lot of it is just somebody hears a theory and they want to be the first person to post on TikTok about it. They want to be the first person to post on YouTube about it. And so they just rush a video out. They don't research it. Yes, it gets a lot of views. And then at the end of the day, you're spreading misinformation. You're doing the same thing people bitched about the mainstream media for doing. Trust in the mainstream media is at like 25-30%. Why? Because they spread misinformation. And you're doing the same thing when you're putting out these TikToks, when you're putting out these shorts with your creepy music, peddling these conspiracy theories. It's along the same lines. It really is.